Let me ask you something. When is the last time you bought a new phone, new shoes, upgraded your car, or just bought something, just anything, because you saw someone else with it first? Now, ask yourself this. Did you actually need it, or did you just need to feel like you weren't falling behind? Now, let's be honest here. Nobody's watching. Here's the truth that nobody in the business of selling us things wants to figure out. We all have been played systematically, repeatedly, and by design. And the most genius part of the whole con is they made us enjoy it. There's a term in marketing called planned obsolescence. It means basically companies intentionally design products to become outdated because they need us to come back and buy again. Our phone from 2 years ago or 3 years ago works, but they made it feel embarrassing to use. Our car runs fine, but they just released a new model with a slightly different grille and called it, I don't know, revolutionary. And our house or apartment is obviously livable, but now our income bracket has shifted, and staying there might mean people think that we haven't grown. All of these things are not an accident. This is a strategy, and we are the product that's being monetized. Here's how it works. They create a product. They obviously make it desirable and tie it to some sort of, status, identity, or some sort of just belonging. And then they introduce a slightly newer version and make the old one feel just insufficient. And then after this, they basically just watch us voluntarily just hand our money to feel, current. And then they just keep repeating this over and over, just forever. Look, they don't just sell us a product. They sell us the feeling that without it, we are somehow less. And then they take the same product, tweak the color, change the name, and just bump up the price, and then sell it back to us again. Look, the truth is we've been buying the same product over and over again and then calling that progress. That is not progress. This is just a subscription that we technically never agreed to. So let's get real about what's actually driving this. And it's not logic, because none of us sits down and then rationally conclude like, hey, I have genuinely exhausted the utility of said item, and I required a greater replacement. Obviously, no one talks like that, but this is not obviously how it happens. Here's how it actually happens. We see someone with something, we feel envy. I'm talking just slightly here, or just anxiety that people are looking at what we have and judging. Then the purchase gets rationalized. We say, I deserve it, I worked hard, it's an investment, or this new model of X is just way better. And with this approach, the emotion came first. The logic just came after in order to just justify it. And that emotion that we felt, they actually engineered it. I'm going to say something that's not publicly accepted. Look, whether by design or unintentionally, social media exists to make us feel behind. Advertising exists to create problems that we didn't have before we technically saw the ad. And influencer culture exists to make us, or just to make aspirational consumption look like it's a personality rather than an actual purchase. Every time we scroll and see someone's, new car, new outfit, or vacation, our brain registers a gap. I'm talking about a distance between where we are and where we technically should be. That gap is a product, and then they sell us the solution. Look, my aim here is to help you understand what's being done to us, because the people that are running this system understand our psychology better than we do. They have entire departments of behavioral scientists dedicated to making sure that we never feel like we're enough. Like, their revenue literally depends on our dissatisfaction. That is just, that's just crazy. What this world is just coming to. Basically just our contentment is their enemy and our insecurity is just their, business model. Here's where it gets even more insidious. Over the past 20 or 30 years, they don't just sell us products anymore. They have been selling us an identity. Here's what I mean. We're not buying shoes. We're actually buying a belonging to some sort of community. We're not buying a car. What we're doing instead is just buying a statement about who we are and where we've technically arrived. And we're also technically not upgrading our housing. We're instead just protecting our sense of self-worth from a story that says, successful people live in nicer places. When our identity becomes entangled with what we own, consumption basically just stops being a choice and it basically becomes a defense mechanism. And this is exactly where they want us, because when we need a product to feel like ourselves, we'll always buy the next one, always upgrade and just justify the cost, because the alternative, which is not to buy, feels like, we're losing a piece of who we are. This is how people earning 6 figures a year technically feel broke. Their identity requires a lifestyle that just consumes everything that they make. They're not buying things anymore. They're buying the story of just who they need to be. So ask yourself right now, if nobody could see what you bought, would you still buy it? Look, if the honest answer is no, you weren't technically buying a product. You were buying an audience. That is just weak, because that audience cost you your freedom. So before your next purchase, before you upgrade anything, just stop and ask just one question. Is this to be seen, or does this genuinely change my life? Not, do I want it, or can I afford it, or is this nice? We know the answers to those already. The real question is, what is the actual honest reason I'm about to spend this money? If the answer involves what someone else will think, this is not a need. This is just a performance, and that's just for the birds. But if the answer is because, the current version genuinely doesn't serve me anymore, that's legitimate. Like, needs are obviously real, and upgrades that solve, actual problems are, very valid. But here's what most people discover when they actually stop and ask the question. Most of their needs exist because of exposure or comparison and just a steady diet of content designed to make them feel insufficient. The upgrade cycle works because we technically just never pause long enough to interrogate. We just feel the pull and then just follow it. And then purchase gives us, momentary relief. And then the cycle just resets. New product, new gap, new insufficient feeling, followed by, you guessed it, a new purchase. Look, the only way off this wheel is to see the wheel for what it is. There is a massive difference between choosing to buy something and being manipulated into buying something. And you deserve to know the difference. So this comes down to building some sort of contentment without losing your ambition. And look, contentment gets a bad reputation because people confuse it with settling. Look, it's not. Contentment is not, I don't want more or I don't want anything. Contentment is basically, I'm not worried over what I don't currently have. Those are completely different states of beings. Settling is technically just giving up, and contentment is refusing to be manipulated. So here are 3 ways on how you can actually build contentment without losing ambition. First, create a visibility test for every upgrade. This is what I mean. Just ask, if this purchase was invisible, if nobody could ever see it, know about it, or associate me with it, would I still want it? And you'd be surprised at the number of things that you are about to buy that fail this test completely. Second, define what enough actually looks like for you. Not society's version, not your friend's version. I'm talking just your version. When you don't have a personal definition of enough, the default definition is always more than you currently have. Look, that's the system's definition, and the system never stops. Third, and then the final one, recognize a manufactured gap before you actually fill it. So when you see an ad, a post, or an influencer, name that thing out loud. This is designed to make me feel like I'm missing something. Once you can name the mechanism, its power over you just diminishes dramatically. Look, I want you to think about how much money has passed through your hands and I'm talking about in your lifetime, everything that you've earned, everything that you've, worked so hard for. And now I want you to think about where it went. How much of it went to things that you use each and every single day? I'm talking things that you genuinely, liked, and things that genuinely improved your life, your health, and your relationships. And how much of it went to upgrades that you didn't need? I'm talking products that made you feel good for 2 weeks before they became just invisible background noise in your life. Now, I want you to be honest here. Don't try to run from this, because that money, it wasn't just money. It was hours of your life that was converted into currency and then just, handed over to a system that was specifically engineered to extract it from you before you thought clearly. So you shouldn't be happy about this. Look, now that you hopefully understand what's been happening, you have a choice that you didn't fully have before. You can keep playing the game the way, they designed it, keep upgrading on their schedule, keep spending to perform an identity, and keep running a race that has no finish line. Or you can opt out. I'm not talking opt out of ambition or nice things or enjoying yourself. I'm saying opt out of manipulation. You can decide that your money, moves forward based on your values, not their engineering. And you can decide that your standard of success is not determined by what you own or how it looks to someone that's just walking past you. You can decide that I'm talking your time, your energy, and your future are, just no longer available for some sort of extraction. The most powerful financial move that you can make is not a better investment or a higher income. Now, obviously, those things help, but what you can do is really simple. Just refuse to be played. Because the people who stop chasing upgrades and start chasing ownership don't just feel better, they build something. While everyone else is just buying the same product for the 10th time, they're accumulating options, freedom, time, and then they just get out. So this all starts the moment we start, being intentional. You were played, and that's okay. We all were, but we don't have to stay that way. The wheel stops the moment you decide it does. So decide. Thanks for watching.